details about the industry. I put some data up here from a study that we just conducted last month nationwide in the United States. And we may speak to it if necessary. I've got a second slide if anybody wants it. These are both public domain slides. These are not proprietary to any specific client of ours, so I'm happy to provide it to you if you give me your card. I've got a second slide that we may or may not show about modes of watching esports and people's interest in that. But let's go ahead and ask each of you to introduce yourselves, and then we'll get into a dialogue back and forth. We'll kind of do this as a two-man interview.
Sounds good. So I'm Casey Chapkin. I'm the co-founder and COO of Skills. And so if you heard the last presentation, you have a good idea of what Skills is. If you weren't here, we are a multiplayer tournament platform for mobile games. So we enable esports competitions in just about any game on mobile.
My name is Marcus Graham. I'm the Director of Community and Education at Twitch. And Twitch is the world's largest video platform and community for gamers. We are currently at about 45, 50 million average users a month. And I mean, as the report, as Mike has kind of talked about, this is sort of the medium in which a lot of the esports fans are consuming esports content.
Do you mind, Marcus, if I take one short moment off topic and just say that, like everybody in the audience, we've all seen the press coverage the last couple of months about potential acquisition of you. As a matter of fact, there was so much press coverage of it that some people presented to me as that it actually happened and I didn't know. So would you mind just updating all of us on the Twitter?
Yeah, I can update you with pretty much the same answer that many people have probably heard before. It starts with no and it ends with comment. That's all I got for you.
That sounds to me like more zeros.
Yeah.
Okay, well, congratulations regardless. I did actually use the Twitch alleged valuation as part of my defense of GoPro on CNBC the day before they went public, so good luck to you guys. Okay, so let's talk about this really interesting space. And first of all, I understand that you're quite an expert in this space. I know you. We know each other. We've hung out. I didn't know you were a big esports guy beyond the skill cash gaming area.
Well, yeah, I think skill cash gaming really is esports, and so for us and our company, we're about enabling esports competitions in just about any game that people are playing. And so I think esports have gotten a lot of press lately, but they've been around for 1981, the Atari Space Invaders cash competition. 10 years before that at Stanford. Blanking on the name here, but I mean, esports have been around for 30 plus years, and they've only recently rose to prominence as you now have the U.S. government enabling citizen or work visas for people who are professional video game players. Call of Duty is now part of the X Games, and you're seeing a $10 million prize in Dota right now, and that's being broadcast by ESPN also.
Are you a Dota and/or League of Legends player?
I'm actually more of a casual gamer myself, and so I think that's probably why I ended up building this company with Andrew, is because I never had time to become an expert in a game. I mean, the last game that I was even remotely good at was the original Halo, and I haven't had time since to become good enough to feel like I can compete in a game. But you find yourself playing mobile games, and you find yourself naturally competing in those, and so you wonder, why is it that you can compete in a game like Halo, or you can compete in offline sports like golf or bowling, but you're not able to compete in the games that you're playing.
And Marcus, I mean, if you run a community at Twitch, you're obviously got a deeply rooted history in League and Dota and Call of Duty. One of those in particular, your game?
So actually, in my almost now 16 years of experience in competitive gaming, I began as a professional player myself. I played Quake. Quake 2 is where I actually began making money, and Quake 3 is where I began making a little bit more money. In retrospect, though, I would travel with my team. We would spend $1,000, and we would, drive to New York to compete for a competition where we would win $800. So I actually have a negative prize winnings from being a professional gamer, but I was sort of amongst the first group of folks that were really pushing to try to make professional gaming and say, hey, we're competing for money. And back then, it wasn't going to pay my rent, but it was the love of the game, it was the passion for the competition that continued to drive it. And that's probably one of the reasons I'm still in esports today, is just the fire of competition and to see these amazing players and what they're able to do within these virtual games.
Are you still playing professionally?
I retired professionally playing in about 1999, and that's when I began to become a game commentator. So that's when sort of, I guess, my next step in my career of esports, where I moved from player to the John Madden, if you will, for Quake and eventually Counter-Strike, StarCraft 2. I mean, I probably broadcast about 20 different games in my 15 years as a commentator.
So some of us remember Twitch as Justin.tv.
Yeah.
So just give us a little bit, how do you go from something that got a little bit of attention as a niche a day in the life of ad nauseum into this, multi-billion-dollar alleged valued alternative to traditional entertainment?
Yeah, so, Justin TV was originated at a very unique time on the web, where video is something that people were consuming, but they were consuming archives. They weren't consuming particularly live video. So when Justin TV came around, it began the trend of let's deliver live video, and then let's give our users the ability to chat and create communities around that video. That's where, one of the reasons why chat interaction is so important on Twitch. What happened is that over a year's time at Justin.tv, people began to realize, okay, some people are broadcasting their cat sleep, some people are broadcasting themselves going to work, other people are doing music, but we're finding that there's a large percentage of people who are playing video games. And what's even more interesting is that people are watching these channels more than they're watching the music, the variety shows, even some celebrities at that point. And it was a pretty obvious realization to everyone at Justin that there was a vertical opportunity here that was to cater towards the gamers, to make a platform, because that was what a majority of Justin.tv was. So it made a lot of sense, and thus Twitch was born.
And there is a Justin, correct?
Yeah, Justin Kahn. He began in 2007 is when he began live streaming himself. That was the concept behind Justin TV, is that this crazy guy wore a camera on his head 24/7, 9 hours of the day he was sleeping, and it wasn't that exciting. The other, few hours a day, maybe something interesting would happen, but it was new, it was fresh, it was the dawn of video streaming, and it caught a lot of media attention, a lot of eyeballs, and I do believe that his crazy antics are one of the reasons why Twitch exists today.
I do remember the early days. It looked like he was still living with his parents.
Yeah, there's some really questionable footage of him early on. I mean, there's some funny things happen to him, from just going to parties and going and visiting his parents to one time he was just sitting answering questions with the chat, and a SWAT team came into the, San Francisco police, open up. Justin was like, what's going on? There's actually footage out on Justin TV, and you hear the police officer go, was someone shot in the chest here? And he's like, no, but I mean, this was truly a live stream of his life. So, thankfully, we can kind of attribute that to the success of Twitch and gaming. It's kind of crazy.
Any indication of casual game becoming part of the uploaded programming, or is the casual area that Casey and I are both involved in more of a doer and no observer, and these other games are a lot of doers but even more observers? So
to me, casual gaming is really interesting, and I want to just preface this with, I am absolutely a hardcore gamer, but I am the biggest mobile gamer. I am always playing a mobile game. I'm the guy that buys diamonds and will, buy coins in game if I like a game. I like to see both sides. As much as I really love the amount of esports content that's taking place on Twitch, frankly, the casual side of it, which would just be someone playing maybe the newest game that was released on Tuesday, or maybe a Clash of Clans or something, this makes up a very large population of viewers and broadcasters on Twitch. So you can't take one out because they both sort of support each other on Twitch. And those communities, they cross-pollinate. It happens. So someone might come to the site and be looking for a League of Legends competition and then see, oh, someone's streaming Clash of Clans. I play that. Let me check it out. And suddenly they find out, oh, I can learn how to play this game better, or this guy's giving me tips, or I didn't know I could do that. Suddenly they've come in for eSports and they've converted to casual, or maybe they already had an interest in casual, and so they come over. And we see the exact same thing happen on the other side. So I think it's very important that both exist on Twitch or anywhere. I mean, some of the things that were mentioned in the last panel and in this panel, I mean, casual gaming and mobile gaming is massive. To ignore it would be foolish. So even though esports is huge, it drives a lot of numbers. To us, the casual audience and the potential there is really important, and we want to foster that growth in those communities as much as possible.
And I think from what we've seen is that gamers are gamers, and mobile is just the medium through which gamers are consuming right now. And so it's not, it's not surprising for me to hear you say that you're playing mobile games and you're a hardcore gamer, because there are plenty of hardcore gamers on mobile and plenty of hardcore gamers who are playing casual games on mobile. It's just another medium for consumption, and mobile has done a fantastic job of democratizing the gaming space and making everyone from my cab driver to my grandmother into a gamer. And I think that it's not surprising to then see esports following that, where wherever the players are, that's where the competitions are going to be.
You should try an Uber driver.
They're even more
What's a taxi?
gamers.
So do you think we'll see on TV, on the internet, casual skill-based cash game competitions that people watch, like we saw so much of Poker After Night, Poker After Dark, and that sort of programming?
Well, I think what's interesting is that you can, so if you go online, you can see the exact number of monthly active users for a game like Dota, which is a $10 million prize right now. It's 9 million. Angry Birds has a monthly active user base of 200 million. So the user base for Angry Birds is 22 times the size of the user base for Dota. And so I think that when you think about consumption and where people are interested in viewing competitions, I absolutely believe that you're going to see those casual games being broadcast, because those are the games that people play. Those are the games that people understand. Try asking someone who doesn't understand NASCAR to sit through a NASCAR race, and they're going to say, this is crazy, it's a bunch of guys driving in circles. And so I think it's really important for the health of the sport itself that people understand the games that are being played.
Do you plan any sort of push in that direction from your company and your platform, specific relationship with Twitch or anybody else, YouTube presence, etc.?
Well, what we already see is users who are playing skills uploading still images from their games. We see them uploading results and screenshots and saying, like, I just beat someone for $20. And so while I can't speak directly to what we're planning in the future, I think you can take, it's a pretty safe guess where the future lies when you already see users engaging in that kind of behavior, where they're interested in sharing the results of their competition.
Do you see skillifying mid-core and core games to the masses? I mean, I think of the competition that Twitch covers so much, Twitch users cover so much, as being a small group of people at the top of the game being watched by a bunch of other people, versus I see you guys as being masses of people playing. Is there going to become a mass skillified for cash, Dota or League of Legends, World of Tanks?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is competitions that exist for gamers who aren't necessarily at the apex of the sport, right? So, and I think you see this in offline sports like bowling, where you can go to your local bowling league and compete in a tournament. I think you see it all the time in golf, where you have country clubs that are hosting charity golf competitions, and those competitions almost always have cash prizes associated with them. And so I think that it's the fundamental nature of competition is that at the highest echelon of players, those guys are always going to be the ones that garner the most attention, but that your casual competitors and even the casual competitors in hardcore gaming want to compete. And I think you have to ask yourself, where would where would the NFL be and what would be the interest in viewing it if you didn't have high school football, college football, corporate two-hand touch leagues, all of
bookies.
all of the recreational, all of the recreational competition that exists in the sport is what feeds into the highest levels of it, and I think that you see the same thing in gaming.
I just want to make a comment on that because in like large international esports, the farm team concept is such a hard thing to nail, because if you have a 15-year-old player who's good and is able to be on that stage to compete for that $10 million, why would he want to be on the local high school team or the local college team when one of the hottest esports teams in the world can pick him up with the parents saying okay? So we see a lot of push towards collegiate star leagues, like this type of thing, but it really is having a hard time meshing into esports because the best players are getting younger, and they're already way beyond who would be on the high school team. So it really offers this interesting perspective. As much as we like to make the parallels between esports and regular sports, this is one that is sort of, it just doesn't work out when you try to compare the two. So it's really, from like the big hardcore competitive side, that's one of the issues that we see. Of course, the flip side of that is these 15-year-old, 20-year-olds, whatever, they are doing what millions of others cannot. And to me, that's like the big differential between the casual competing for cash and playing Dota 2. Because I see someone competing for cash and I go, I can do that, I can get involved, I'm going to do that. Whereas like a lot of time in esports, it's similar to going, Michael Jordan just landed that 3-point, I'll never be able to do that in a million years. Similar things happen. That $1 million dream coil that was just thrown out in a Dota 2 competition, like that's it. People want to watch those players that are exponentially better than them. And so that is where like the distinction between player and fan or just viewer. There are so many fans of esports and viewers that just don't play, but they will watch their favorite teams till the cows come home. Hours upon hours.
I guess it's interesting when you bring up the challenges in creating that farm system or that amateur league competition in video games, because I do think it'll happen, it's just the delineation won't be on age. So in predominantly physical sports, baseball, basketball, football, you see age as an important indicator of and where competitive race should happen. But I think really, and even in those same sports, you see, let's take football for example, where you have the NFL, you have arena football, you have Canadian football, you have semi-pro teams, and all of these people are earning a living, competing in the sport and have viewers, and they're all the same age, they're just different ability levels, and that's part of what makes it interesting. Minor league baseball, the players, some of the players are younger in minor league baseball, but a lot of the players are just as old as major league ball players. They're just not as good, and so they group together to play, much in the same way that, a lot of my contemporaries are similar age to professional, LeBron James, for instance, and I like competing in basketball, but I'm not ready to take the court with LeBron.
Right. At least not a full court. You mentioned international. We've done a little research in China. What do you guys see both on the casual and the hardcore side as the international side of esports?
Esports is global no matter what. It's one of the things that I'm personally proud of as far as Twitch is concerned, because having worked on actual television gaming productions for DirecTV, I know what sort of challenges you face when you're dealing with terrestrial methods of sending a signal out. If you didn't have access to DirecTV, guess what? You weren't watching it. And Twitch, it doesn't matter if you're in China, if you're in Europe, if you're in North America, you're able, there's no cable companies, there's no boundaries. Because I don't have Sky, I can't watch that, that's no longer an issue. So we see US fans getting behind the Korean players and the Korean teams. We see European fans doing the same, and even US teams going over to China and being like superstars and celebrities over there. I mean, internationally, these boundaries were pretty much broken in 2009, even though international competitions were already a thing. I mean, WCG, which was the World Cyber Games, now defunct, but they began in 2000, and it was almost 13 years that they operated on a global scale. They had 74 different countries represented every single year, and it's always been global, but the distribution hasn't been global until just very recently.
So you've yet to be banned anywhere on Twitch, is that what you're telling me? You haven't really made it till you get banned in China for at least a while.
I guess we're still doing okay. Either that or they like to watch gaming, so we're good.
And what's your read on the international situation, particularly from the casual side?
Yeah, well, when we see the exact same trends, right? So we see players from all over the world competing against each other. Gamers are gamers. I mean, eSports are an international sport, and so whether it's casual on mobile, core on console, people like competing with each other. Gamers like playing, and so we're seeing a tremendous amount of growth in the international space.
You know, our question that we ask up here is more towards the hardcore esports, and we asked the same question in a study we did in China last year, and I think this was 9% last year, now 12% in the U.S. In China last year was 30% of the game-enabled population. So I'm going to guess it's 400, 500 million, something like that in China, and they're going to keep growing.
I mean, I think it's, when you mentioned that the stats up here are coming from the hardcore space, of course they are, up until a year ago when, Skills was the first competition platform for mobile games, and so the notion of competing in esports competitions inside mobile games has only been around for a year. We launched just over a year ago, and we had 10 indie games from 10 different studios, and now we're working with 350 different studios, including publicly traded companies all the way through indie one-man, one-woman bands. And so I think the notion of the casual gamer being an esports competitor is truly a new one, but it's becoming an incredibly fast-growing part of the space. So we, I can only speak for what we're doing as a company, but we recently paid out, about a month ago, we paid out $1 million in prizes, and at the time, the total prize pool in all of esports globally was only 10 million, which means that casual mobile gamers, or mobile gamers, I shouldn't restrict it to casual, mobile gamers were amassing 10% of the total esports prize pool.
Now that 10 million
For Dota.
Well, now Dota, now there's a $10 million prize pool, and so now it's been.
I just want the yearly esports prize pool is probably in like the $20 million range right now for highest level competitive play, which is still a great percentage based off of what you just said. But
yeah, sure, 5%, 10%. It's the notion that this space just didn't exist a year ago and is now. It's basically where the players are ends up being that's where the prizes are going to be, because that's where the competitions are going to be.
Hey, you're the guy spending $1 to make 80 cents, and you're giving him a hard time about 5 or 10%.
If I like a game, I'll support.
And the growth is that kind of growth, right? This is doubling in the last it's doubled every year in the last couple of years, right?
For what specifically?
For the total cash.
By comparison, last year's international prize pool, which is crowdsourced as well, I'm not sure if folks are familiar with that, but basically Valve puts up a base amount. I believe last year it was about 1.2 million, and then they sell a digital item called the Compendium, and the Compendium had information about the players, maybe some in-game items. And every time a compendium was purchased by a fan, an additional $2.50 went into the prize pool. Last year, they got up to, I believe, 2.7 million. And this year, crowdsourced, they went up to 10.5 million. So that was just like a crowdsourced initiative that you can see grew huge in a single year. As far as overall, with more companies like Riot having their own LCS and Blizzard having their own World Championship Series, the creation of these leagues and the publishers' backing of them is seeing this overall prize pot across all games increase pretty significantly. So, I mean, it can change. The climate will always change. Some games will come out, of the favorites, and new games will come in, and that will always sort of have an adverse effect on how much money is coming in.
You know, the most locked down game facility I'm ever in, and this includes Xbox, who's famous for being secure and confidential, is actually the Riot offices in Santa Monica. They've got like 3 guards, like 4 receptionists, and I've never been in that office where there aren't a dozen or more foreign tourists mostly, just wanting to see where Riot is and look at the leaderboards and whatnot that they have.
Yeah.
I mean, they could sell tickets to their lobby.
They actually probably could. I mean, they've got a massive user base, so that I don't think they're going to be going down that avenue for revenue stream, but they probably could. If league starts falling off, maybe they have another option.
So when there's 50,000 people in an arena watching one of these games, where does that money go? How does that get divided up?
I mean, that's a good question. Like, every single organization is going to be making a different deal depending on how it works. In some cases, it might be a percentage of ticket sales that is shared. In other cases, there's been cities that have, frankly, hosted these events to bring people into the city and to bring gamers and anyone who will spend money into the city, the stadium, etc. That would be an individual deal that would be made by a Valve, a Riot, etc.
And then the concessions and the beer and all that just goes to the stadium.
I mean, again, since this is also pretty new, I would imagine that a Riot and a Valve would sort of follow under the similar guidelines as a professional team if they were there, or another big event that was there. So if there was any sort of shared revenue, I assume that would be something that would trickle down, to them and their event as well.
Good. Let's talk a little bit about demos now. I think you get this kind of traditional expectation that, I would say this is probably not accurate with RPG in particular, but that it's a bunch of men playing these hardcore League, Dota, etc., Call of Duty, and that it's a bunch of women, middle-aged women, we used to call them Pogo Walmart moms, and we said that affectionately, playing the casual games. I don't really have a sense that's accurate.
From the, speaking from the competitive, the high-level eSports, I guess you could say, the professional teams and whatnot, I think that we're seeing a predominantly male, 15 to 35, who's interested in playing, watching, and following their favorite teams. But the beauty of it is that we are seeing a lot more females being engaged as fans, being engaged as players, and being their own broadcasters as well. And for me personally, having spent so much time in esports, it was pretty rare to see a gal around some of the competitions that we went to. But now it's a lot. It's a lot different. Still widely scaled towards the male demographic, but we're definitely seeing that growth. The casual side is much different. What do you think?
Yeah, certainly in mobile esports, what we're seeing is that it's very, very even, and so we see it really just depends on the game that people are competing in, but that women are just as likely to be esports competitors as men are, and I think that's the beauty of mobile gaming in general, is that, as I mentioned earlier, as mobile has democratized gaming, where competitions in mobile are truly democratized also, and we see an even mix of men versus women. We see older people competing, younger people competing. It's the people who are already playing the game who are just looking to compete.
I know I should know this, so I apologize, but is there an 18-year-old limit in skills?
From a legal perspective, you can be 13 to compete in cash competitions, and I think you see that in chess tournaments that have 13-year-old competitors, or as Marcus just mentioned, that some of the best gamers are under 18 years old. For us, we do have an 18-year-old. We require people to be 18 in order to play for real money on the system. And predominantly, I think that is just because there's this, and it's funny. There's sometimes a negative perception where people ask us all the time, "Is this gambling?" When we're enabling people to compete in esports on mobile, and something about casual gaming and money that people have this association. And what I'd say is really is a lack of recognition of the skill that goes into it, because gambling is devoid of skill, and so people say, mobile games plus money, that must be gambling. And it just couldn't be farther from the truth. But because of that, I think we tend to play it very, very safe in terms of public perception of what we're doing, and so we require people to be 18 and play on the system.
So you're a good laboratory for looking at male, female, old, young, as Hollywood likes to call it, the 4 quadrants of entertainment consumers, because you've got them all. What are you seeing? Or one age group or one gender spending more time, spending more money, have a better win rate?
Well, I mean, younger people there's a higher penetration of smartphones among younger people, so we do see more younger people playing. But it's, what's so interesting is the demographics of competition follow the demographics of gaming. That competition is very intrinsic to gaming, and so the people who are playing on our system and playing competitively map to the demographics of the people who are playing the game, period. And so we haven't published anything in terms of what the economics look like of older players versus younger players, but what I can say is that it follows very closely to the economics of the players, and so the skills population is something of a referendum of the general population of mobile gamers in general.
Marcus, I meant to ask you a little bit earlier about this. There's some esports out there in sports, right? Like Madden and FIFA and whatnot.
I mean, there is. It's it's interesting because FIFA had the FIFA Interactive World Cup that ran in tandem with the World Cup, but that was sort of a special event around the World Cup, and we don't see traditionally very many sports games competitions. Why? Partially because the publishers have, the Madden Challenge from EA, that's been their baby. So that, other organizations haven't necessarily gone into them. You also see that in Europe, the FIFA competitions are much more abundant, but not so much in the US. So sports games are a little weird because they don't necessarily translate the same way from country to country as well, because some sports are popular here, others not here. So there are professional sports games players, but you don't find them as often.
Are you suggesting that we're talking about 2 games that the EA makes, that they're less supportive of esports than Riot or?
I mean, frankly, I would say that they had the foresight early on to go, people really enjoy playing Madden. Let's create the Madden Challenge. Let's get the best Madden players in the world and let them duke out and find out who's the best. You strip everything down, and that is essentially what esports is 2 individuals competing for however much money they were putting up. I mean, the Madden Challenge was almost ahead of its time, if you look at it. I mean, it was started when there wasn't video streaming, when no one was necessarily going to put it on television. So, I don't really fault them for not necessarily having the same support now versus what they might have had even 8 years ago, because they tried something maybe in the wrong climate, but they tried something. Right now, sports games just aren't necessarily the go-to game for people who want to compete for money, and so that's, a tough challenge